In every smart person's life, there's a quiet breaking point. You were in a room with people you called friends. Something was said, a joke about you, a comment that cut a little too deep, a glance that told you they weren't afraid to lose you. In that moment, you felt it. They don't respect you. They're comfortable. They assume access to you. You laughed it off so you wouldn't look sensitive, but inside, something switched. That moment wasn't embarrassment. That was the birth of your strategic mind. Listen carefully and do not leave this video early. At the end, I'm going to give you a 5-rule operating system, a real framework to make yourself untouchable in any room with any person. If you miss that, you'll go back to being understood and still controlled. Stay. Sign 1 of a Machiavellian mind. You don't listen to words. You scan for motives. Regular people ask, what did they say? You ask, why did they need to say it? What are they trying to gain by saying it to me now in this way? Machiavelli said it simply, people speak morality, but act for advantage. You stopped taking promises as truth. You started tracking behavior like evidence. You don't ask, do they like me? Anymore. You ask, do they profit from me? That shift ends naive relationships permanently. Sign 2. Your silence makes people nervous. You've seen it. You don't react fast. You pause. And in that pause, they start over-explaining, justifying, confessing. Anger is readable. Silence is a contract. Why would you talk when they'll hand you leverage for free? That's not cruelty. That's emotional discipline. You finally understand this. Instant emotional access to you is not a right. It's something that must be earned. But here's the cost. Now you're cold, guarded, hard to read. You've heard this. Why don't you just open up more? Translation, why can't I get predictable access to your core on demand? And when you refuse to perform your insides for them, you feel it. That cold, calm building in you, access to me is not automatic anymore. It's negotiated. So here's your first dilemma. When you see someone's play, you know they're flattering you to secure you. You know they're baiting you to expose you. Do you call it out publicly and blow up their game in front of everyone? Or do you keep pretending you don't see it so you can keep collecting on them and end them when it actually matters? What would you do? Because if you think being real and being understood is going to save you, you're already losing. The moment you stop needing to be understood by everyone, you become harder to control by anyone. Are you actually ready to let people misunderstand you on purpose? Let's talk prediction. Sign 3. You see outcomes before they happen. Not because you're psychic, because you pay attention. You watch how someone treats people they think are beneath them. You watch how they talk about the person they respect the second that person leaves the room. You watch how fast they throw blame. You're not impressed by how they treat you during the honeymoon phase. You're mapping how they treat low-value people, because that's exactly how they'll treat you the second they think you're no longer useful. This is emotional intelligence as a weapon, not a self-care skill. It also makes you extremely hard to flatter. And this is where people start having a problem with you. Flattery is one of the oldest manipulation systems. You're different. You're the only one I trust. No one gets me like you. Old you melted when you heard that. New you hears, I'm trying to recruit you as a shield, so later I can use your loyalty to protect me and your voice to attack for me. Machiavelli warned, people praise you most intensely when they need you most obediently. Sign 4. You control your reactions even when you're in pain. That is not numbness. That is leverage control. You've learned a brutal rule. The person who loses composure first loses positioning. How many arguments have you watched fall apart, not because one side was wrong, but because one side got emotional and could now be labeled unstable? You refuse to hand people that weapon. You let them perform rage. You stay surgical. Calm is not kindness. Calm is territory. Modern scenario. You're in a meeting. Your manager takes credit for work you did in front of senior leadership. Your body heats up. Old, you would have snapped right there, exposed them, demanded recognition. That's what they want, because then they say you're difficult to work with, and now your skill becomes attitude. New, you doesn't react in the room. You gather receipts. After, you go quietly to senior leadership and say, for continuity, here's the version history and the original drafts I've been iterating on. You didn't accuse. You documented. You didn't explode. You rewired the record. That is narrative control. That is how silent people win. Now listen very carefully, because this is where most of you fail and get used for years. If you stop watching right here and go back to, I just want people to respect me, you will keep getting harvested. You'll keep feeding other people's careers, their egos, their emotional security. And you'll be replaced the second you're no longer useful. You won't even see it happening until you're already out. So here's your dilemma. Someone disrespects you publicly. Do you swing right now to restore your honor, or do you stay quiet, let them believe you're weak, and set up a structural strike that hurts them permanently instead of emotionally? Which one makes you more powerful long term? What would you do? Sometimes power is not domination. Sometimes power is patience that lets the other person hang themselves on record. You keep watching, or you keep bleeding. Now we get into the part that scares people. Sign 5. You understand that reputation is armor. You don't treat your image like ego decoration. You treat it like body armor in a knife fight. You are now deliberately shaping what people think you are, not because you're fake, but because you know people act based on perception, not truth. Machiavelli. It is not necessary to be good. It is necessary to appear good. Appearances, reality. You don't actually have to be harmless. You only have to be perceived as inconvenient to cross. Let's be honest. You're building a myth, quietly but with intention. You're training the room to believe certain things about you. They don't chase. They don't beg. They don't stay where they're disrespected. You don't scream standards. You embody standards, and you let other people repeat the story for you. You're making your absence feel expensive. You're not asking for loyalty. You're making losing you feel like a loss. Sign 6. You practice selective mercy. This is where the morality strain hits. Outsiders will call this manipulative. But here's what you already know, and it's ugly. Pure kindness attracts parasites. Pure cruelty creates revolt. Selective mercy creates controlled loyalty. You help people in a way that binds them to you without humiliating them. You protect someone quietly at a moment that mattered. You never weaponize that favor publicly. You don't say, remember what I did for you. You let them remember. You let the memory work for you. That's how kings build loyalists without looking like tyrants. That's how CEOs keep lieutenants. That's how quiet people build empires. Now, here's where it starts to hurt. You're getting so good at seeing motives that real connection is becoming almost impossible. Every vulnerability looks like potential leverage. Every confession someone gives you sounds like a test. Every I trust you makes you ask, why are you telling me this now, and what do you expect in return? You want intimacy, but you've seen over and over how fast love becomes leverage in a conflict. That's the cost of awareness. You can't unknow what you now see. Let me give you something nobody ever says publicly. Relationship level, not business. Your partner's anger is not anger. It's control anxiety. They're not mad you went out. They're scared you're becoming emotionally independent from them. In that moment, you have two options. You can soothe it honestly and protect the relationship. Or you can let that insecurity grow so they become more clingy, more compliant, more dependent on you. One path is love. One path is control. Which would you choose? What would you do? Here's the line you need to hear, and you already know it's true. Intelligence without ethics turns predatory. Ethics without intelligence turns you into prey. Which edge are you sharpening right now? Sign 7. And this is the fracture point most people never recover from. Being more perceptive than everyone else does not make you happier. It makes you lonelier. This is the climax. Pay attention. Here's the truth you've been choking on for years. Most people don't actually want to be understood by you. They want to be agreed with by you. The moment you stop giving emotional compliance, they label you cold, arrogant, difficult, too intense, too serious, too much. Translation: you see too much, and it makes me uncomfortable. Let that land. Now, here's the revelation that will save you if you accept it. Raw intelligence is not the final form. Just seeing through people is not enough. You can see betrayal coming and still get destroyed if you don't have structure. You can read the entire room and still get removed if you're alone. You are not supposed to only observe. You are supposed to arm. This is where one of Machiavelli's most abused ideas becomes real. If you must choose, it's safer to be feared than loved, as long as you are not hated. Fear means they consider consequences before touching you. Hate means they'll burn the whole system just to hurt you. So, what does that mean for you right now? In modern life, it means two things. You stop trying to be universally liked, and you stop being sloppy with dominance. You become the fox and the lion. The fox to detect traps, the lion to make hurting you feel expensive. Let me give you a modern example. Two co-founders. One is charismatic, loved, the face of the brand. The other is quiet, keeps records, understands contracts, talks to investors calmly, built loyalty with the engineers. When the split comes, the charming one assumes everyone will follow them because they're adored. The quiet one doesn't panic. They already secured legal positioning. They already stabilized the money. They already earned silent loyalty. The loud one thought charisma was power. The quiet one understood power is infrastructure. Ask yourself honestly, which one are you becoming? Now, listen, because this is the pivot point. You thought your gift was, I see people clearly. That's not your gift. Your gift is that you can now choose your position in any situation without emotional panic. You can deny access without guilt. You can walk away without explaining. You can reward without being owned. You can correct disrespect without raising your voice. You can engineer outcomes without being visible as the engineer. If you feel that and you're sitting there alone, nodding in the dark, thinking, no one has ever said this out loud to me, good. You're not alone here. Do not click away now. Because next, I'm going to hand you the 5-rule operating system I promised you at the start. The blueprint for how to live in this mindset in real life without burning out, without getting isolated, and without being used. You need this part. Here's the question before we go on. Now that you know you're not just overthinking, you're actually powerful. Are you going to build something stable with that power, or are you just going to use it to feel superior while you stay alone? You decide how this ends. This is where you stop consuming and start building. You do not leave this video saying, wow, I'm different. That's not the point. Feeling powerful is not the win. Positioning yourself so you cannot be cheaply moved, that's the win. Here is the 5-rule operating system for running your life like someone who cannot be played. Rule 1. Control access. Your time, attention, emotional labor are now by invitation only. You don't argue for respect, you price it. When someone crosses a line, you don't plead, explain, or emotionally audition for them. You reduce access, quietly, cleanly, permanently if necessary. Selective mercy. You are teaching the world how to treat you. Rule 2. Build a war council, not a friend circle. Stop surrounding yourself with people who get your vibe. You need people who can execute, people who think clearly, people who will tell you the hard truth because they'd rather keep you alive than keep you comfortable. You don't need 20 warm bodies around you. You need 3 people who will not sell you under pressure. Rule 3. Turn reputation into armor. Starting now, you are intentional about how you are perceived. You present as disciplined, not desperate. Calm, not chaotic. High standard, not always available. You do not announce this. You live it. You let other people repeat it. Your name becomes a warning label before you even walk in. Rule 4. Control the narrative. If you don't tell your story, someone else will weaponize their version. You learn to frame what happened in a way that protects your position even when you bled. You choose what becomes public and what stays sealed. You never hand an enemy the version of the story where you look unstable. Rule 5. Emotional regulation is now mandatory. You already know people will try to provoke you just to steal your leverage. You've already seen how weakness is sold to you as morality, so you'll be easier to manage. From now on, you breathe first, respond second, act last. You do not react on their timing. You move on yours with receipts toward your outcome. Now let me ask you the last real question. You've just seen how manipulation works, how loyalty is traded, how perception creates safety. You can walk into almost any room now and read it like a map. So, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to quietly build a life where no one can cheaply threaten you? Or are you going to keep leaking this power just to beg for connection from people who will never respect you? Final truth. You are not here to be harmless. You are here to become unplayable. That is the mark of strategic genius. That is a Machiavellian mind. If this hit a truth you've been avoiding, subscribe. Here, we don't trade comfort. We trade illusions for strategy.